Welcome to a deep dive designed just for you. Today, we're zeroing in on a topic that brings up, well, a lot of questions. How weight can change during menopause.
It really is a major point of conversation for so many. We've gathered a stack of recent research and articles. These are your sources to really dig into why this happens
All right.
and, more importantly, what specific science-backed steps can actually make a difference.
Absolutely. We'll explore those hormonal shifts, definitely, but also look at other factors that maybe play a surprising role.
Exactly.
And then we'll unpack the practical advice from these sources on, diet, exercise.
Even things like hormone therapy and supplements.
Right. The goal here is to give you a clear, evidence-based picture so you feel hopefully well-informed and empowered. Let's dive in. So let's start with the body itself. It seems menopause triggers some pretty significant internal changes beyond just the hot flashes everyone knows about. What's the core physiological story here?
Well, the foundational shift, the big one, is that dramatic drop in estrogen levels.
Yeah.
Estrogen isn't just for reproduction, it actually plays a real role in your metabolism.
Ah,
So with less estrogen, your body's resting metabolic rate. That's basically the calories you burn just existing, keeping things running.
right, just keeping the lights on.
Exactly. That slows down.
Meaning you might need fewer calories just to maintain your current weight than you did before.
Precisely. The research consistently shows this metabolic slowdown. And alongside that, we generally see an increase in overall body fat mass.
More fat overall.
Yes. And just as importantly, a decrease in lean muscle mass as menopause progresses.
And these sources point out that it's not just more fat, but a different kind of fat, maybe where it's stored. Is that right?
That's a really crucial distinction. There's a definite shift in where fat tends to accumulate. Before menopause, maybe more on the hips and thighs, that's called gynoid fat.
Okay.
But during and after menopause, there's a trend towards more fat storage around the abdomen, surrounding the internal organs.
Ah, the android type.
Yes, android or visceral fat, that's the technical term.
That sounds like the classic middle-age spread people talk about. How much weight gain are we typically looking at during this transition, on average?
Well, on average, women tend to gain about half a kilogram, maybe a pound or so per year during that perimenopause phase.
Doesn't sound huge year to year, but
Right, but it adds up over time. And it's important to note, around 20% of women might gain more significantly, perhaps over 4 or 5 kilograms, say 10 pounds or more, during the entire menopausal transition period.
and this visceral fat, this stuff settling around the middle, it's more than just how your clothes fit, isn't it?
Oh, far from it. This visceral fat is, well, it's metabolically active in a way that maybe fat on your hips isn't.
Active, what does that mean?
It means it's producing substances, influencing things. Its presence is strongly linked to increased risk of what we call cardiometabolic diseases.
Right.
Things like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, unhealthy cholesterol patterns, dyslipidemia. This shift helps explain why we see those health risks climb after menopause.
Okay, so we've got lower estrogen, a slower metabolism, some muscle loss, and this shift towards more risky abdominal fat. That's already quite a picture. What else is going on internally?
Well, there's also that loss of muscle mass itself, which has a clinical name, sarcopenia. It's partly tied to aging generally, but it seems exacerbated by these hormonal changes.
Right.
And bone density tends to decrease too, another big concern. The combination of lower estrogen and sometimes relatively higher levels of other hormones like androgens can further drive fat gain while making it harder to hold onto muscle.
It's a double whammy, almost.
It really is. This altered body composition, less metabolically active muscle, more fat, creates a sort of feedback loop. It further slows your resting metabolism, making it even easier to gain weight, even if you haven't changed how you eat at all. Now, while those hormonal changes are definitely primary drivers, these sources make it very clear that it's not just about the hormones. Several other factors come into play and significantly complicate weight management during this time.
Okay, so beyond the hormones, what other pieces of the puzzle did the research you looked at highlight?
Insulin resistance is a big one.
Ah, okay.
Both lower estrogen and that increased visceral fat we just talked about make your body cells less sensitive to insulin.
And insulin manages blood sugar.
Exactly. It's key. Studies show a really significant jump in something called metabolic syndrome, which is a cluster of conditions including insulin resistance in postmenopausal women compared to before menopause. It means the body just becomes less efficient at handling sugar from your food.
So the way your body processes food changes. What about, our daily routines and habits and the lifestyle stuff?
Oh, absolutely critical. Physical activity often tends to decline as we age.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's fatigue, maybe joint pain, or just, life gets busy.
sure.
Less activity obviously means fewer calories burned, but there's a bit more to it. The research points out that regular exercise can actually counteract some of that age-related metabolic slowdown we mentioned earlier. Yes, women who stay consistently active don't always see the same degree of decline in their resting metabolism. So low activity isn't just about the calories outside. It actually contributes to the underlying metabolic picture itself.
That's interesting. Now, I've definitely heard sleep affects weight. Is that relationship particularly strong during menopause?
It really is. Sleep disturbances are incredibly common during menopause.
Okay.
The night sweats, insomnia, just generally disrupted sleep.
Definitely hear about that a lot.
And these disruptions are strongly linked to changes in appetite hormones, specifically an imbalance in leptin, which tells you you're full,
Okay.
and ghrelin, which signals hunger. Poor sleep quality is actually considered a significant risk factor for weight gain, almost on par with the hormonal changes themselves in some studies.
Wow.
One study specifically found that postmenopausal women who reported chronic poor sleep gained more weight over time than those who slept well. So focusing on sleep hygiene is definitely part of the overall weight management picture here.
And stress, that feels like a constant for many people, but is there a specific link to weight gain in menopause?
Well, midlife often brings its own unique set of stressors, doesn't it?
It can, yeah.
And chronic stress leads to elevated cortisol levels. Cortisol is kind of notorious for promoting abdominal fat storage.
Right, the stress hormone.
Exactly.
Uh,
We even see it in medical conditions like Cushing's syndrome, where high cortisol causes that characteristic central obesity pattern.
Mm.
But even without a specific pathology, prolonged everyday stress and the resulting elevated cortisol can make weight loss harder and specifically encourage that belly fat we're trying to avoid.
So managing stress isn't just for your mental health. It could impact weight too.
It seems to have an important indirect positive effect, yes. Things like yoga, meditation, whatever works for you.
And finally, are there any other sort of medical considerations mentioned?
Yes, the sources do mention that certain medications sometimes prescribed during this life stage, like some types of antidepressants, for example, can potentially make weight control more challenging for some individuals. And also conditions like hypothyroidism and underactive thyroid, which slows metabolism. Well, that's actually quite common in middle-aged women, too. That needs to be considered as it can definitely impact weight, separate from menopause itself. So these individual medical factors are important to keep in mind.
Okay, so it's a really complex picture then. Hormonal shifts, these metabolic changes, plus lifestyle factors like activity, stress, sleep. That gives us a good sense of the why. Now, how do we actively tackle this? The sources put a huge emphasis on nutrition, right?
Nutrition is absolutely foundational, yes. At its core, it still boils down to energy balance, calories in versus calories out.
The basic equation.
Right. But because metabolism tends to slow down, as we've discussed, you might find you need a slightly lower calorie intake than you used to just to prevent gain. Or perhaps a more significant reduction if weight loss is the goal.
How much of a reduction are we talking about based on the research? Is there a target?
Well, moderate calorie restriction is consistently shown to be effective. The sources discuss ranges maybe around 1,200 to 1,500 kilocalories per day as being effective for weight loss in postmenopausal women. But of course, that depends heavily on individual needs, activity level.
Right. It's not one size fits all.
Definitely not. And the key is that it has to be moderate enough to be sustainable long term, and critically, it must still provide all the essential nutrients your body needs.
Okay, so controlling calories is part one. What about what we're actually eating? The focus on macronutrients, protein, carbs, fats.
Protein becomes particularly vital during this time.
Why protein specifically?
Two main reasons. First, it's really good for satiety, helping you feel full and satisfied, which makes sticking to a lower calorie plan easier.
Makes sense.
And second, crucially, it helps preserve muscle mass during weight loss. Remember we talked about sarcopenia, that age-related muscle loss?
Yeah, you don't want to lose muscle while losing weight.
Exactly. Higher protein intake in postmenopausal women is linked to maintaining more muscle and also better physical function. Some experts suggest aiming for maybe 1.0 to 1.2 grams per kilogram of your body weight daily.
That's a bit higher than the standard recommendation.
It is a bit higher than the standard RDA, which is 0.8 kilograms.
Yeah.
That might still be enough if your overall diet is healthy and you're doing strength training. But the point is, don't skimp on protein. Just eating tons of protein won't build muscle without the exercise stimulus, though.
Right, so focus on quality sources.
Absolutely. Lean meats, fish, eggs, dairy, legumes, nuts, seeds, those are all great choices.
Okay, protein is key. What about fats and carbohydrates? How should we think about those?
Again, it really comes down to quality and balance. Healthy fats are essential. Think olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds, fatty fish. They're needed for hormone production, absorbing certain vitamins.
But they're high in calories.
They are calorie dense, yes. So moderation is key. Maybe aiming for around 30% of your total daily calories from healthy fats is a reasonable guideline.
And carbs, they get a bad rap sometimes.
They do, but the emphasis here is on the type of carbohydrate. Prioritize complex, low glycemic sources.
Meaning,
Foods like whole grains, vegetables, legumes, fruits, things that are digested more slowly and cause a gradual rise in blood sugar rather than the sharp spikes you get from refined carbs and sugars.
and does that make a difference for weight?
Seems to. One review from 2021 specifically found that diets based on low glycemic index foods led to more fat loss compared to standard diets in overweight women. So choosing your carbs wisely matters.
Interesting. What did the sources say about really popular diets right now, like very low carb or keto, for this specific group?
That was interesting. These sources actually cautioned against using very low-carb, high-fat diets like the ketogenic approach specifically for weight loss in menopausal women.
Oh, really? Why?
They noted potential negative effects on cholesterol levels in some people and suggested there isn't strong evidence showing a significant long-term fat loss advantage over more balanced, moderate carb approaches for this particular group.
Okay, so maybe extreme isn't necessary or even optimal here. What about plant-based?
Yes, some sources mention that low-fat, plant-based diets have been linked to improved body composition, meaning less body fat in some studies, although they noted more long-term research is probably needed.
So it sounds like a balanced approach, maybe leaning towards those low glycemic carbs and healthy fats. Are there specific overall dietary patterns that got a strong recommendation?
The Mediterranean diet came up repeatedly. It was highlighted as one of the most well-studied and consistently recommended patterns.
What makes it so good?
Well, it's naturally rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, lots of olive oil, and fish, while being lower in red meat and added sugars.
Sounds healthy generally.
It is. It's known to be anti-inflammatory, great for heart health, and importantly for this discussion, studies show it helps with weight management in this population. Following a Mediterranean pattern is associated with less gain around the waist, less abdominal obesity, which, as we discussed, is really key for cutting down those cardiometabolic risks.
Okay, Mediterranean sounds like a solid approach. Now, intermittent fasting is incredibly popular. Did the sources cover that?
They did, yes. Intermittent fasting,
Uh-huh.
or IF, different protocols like time-restricted eating, maybe the 168 schedule or the 5.2 approach with low-calorie days, they were definitely discussed.
And what's the verdict? Does it help?
The data suggests that IF can be effective. It seems to help reduce that tricky visceral fat and improve metabolic markers like blood sugar and lipids, possibly by boosting insulin sensitivity.
So it works for postmenopausal women.
Some trials have shown positive results, yes. Postmenopausal women have achieved weight loss with IF, sometimes performing comparably to younger women in certain studies.
So is it better than just regular calorie cutting?
Well, that's the key question. The overall picture from these sources seems to be that while IF can work, when you compare it head-to-head with traditional, consistent, moderate calorie restriction.
They often end up similar.
Exactly. They often show similar total weight loss outcomes overall. So the choice might really come down to personal preference, what feels more sustainable and easier for you to stick with long term.
Are there any specific cautions with IF during menopause?
Yes, a couple of points. It's generally advised that women who have significant menopausal symptoms or maybe certain underlying health conditions should definitely consult with their doctor before starting IF.
Why is that?
Well, there's a possibility that restricting eating windows might potentially worsen symptoms like hot flashes for some, or perhaps increase stress levels, so it's worth discussing. But the fundamental principle remains. You still need to create that overall calorie deficit and make sure you're getting all the necessary nutrients within your eating window, whichever approach you choose.
Makes sense. Okay, we've hit macros, patterns, IF. What about specific nutrients like fiber or the role of gut health?
Fiber is absolutely crucial and honestly often underestimated. High fiber intake is strongly linked to better weight control, especially during midlife and beyond. Fiber slows down how quickly you absorb carbohydrates. It helps you feel fuller for longer, which aids calorie control.
And it's good for digestion.
Right. And it's essential fuel for a healthy gut microbiome. The recommendation is often aiming for around 30 to 45 grams of fiber per day during peri and postmenopause.
That sounds like quite a lot. How can you hit that?
A simple strategy is aiming to fill about half your plate at meals with non-starchy vegetables and salads, and making sure about a quarter includes whole grains or legumes. That gets you a long way there. And speaking of gut health, the gut microbiota, those trillions of bacteria living in your digestive system, is also getting a lot more attention now.
How does that connect to menopause and weight?
Well, menopause itself can actually alter the balance of your gut flora. And imbalances in gut bacteria have been linked to things like increased waist circumference and metabolic issues. So supporting a healthy gut environment is definitely another piece of the puzzle to consider for overall metabolic health.
So do specific probiotic supplements help directly with weight loss then?
Based on these sources, the evidence for a direct, significant weight loss effect from probiotic supplements specifically is still kind of emerging and seems modest at best.
So not a magic bullet.
Not really. Some meta-analyses do show a small positive impact on weight and maybe some metabolic markers like glucose or lipids, but it's generally not a game changer on its own for weight loss.
Any interesting nuances?
One study did find that combining probiotics with exercise, particularly high-intensity interval training, seemed to yield somewhat better results for body composition compared to doing the exercise alone. But overall, the impact seems limited.
So what's the recommendation for gut health then?
A more fundamental approach recommended in the sources is focusing on feeding the good bacteria you already have with prebiotics, basically, fiber and resistant starch, and also including naturally fermented foods that contain live cultures like yogurt, kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut as part of your regular diet.
Okay, focus on fiber and fermented foods. What about specific vitamins or minerals? Were any highlighted as particularly important during this time?
Vitamin D deficiency came up as very common, especially in women over 50.
Does taking vitamin D help you lose weight?
Not directly, no. Taking vitamin D alone won't cause weight loss. However, having optimal levels is linked to better insulin sensitivity, and it can indirectly support your weight management efforts by potentially improving mood, energy levels, and muscle function, making it easier to stick with diet and exercise.
What kind of levels are recommended?
Recommendations often range from 1,000 to 2,000 international units, or IU, per day, but it really depends on your current levels. Testing is the best way to know if you need more. Calcium is also vital, of course, working alongside vitamin D for bone health. That's particularly important given the increased risk of decreased bone density after menopause. Around 1,200 milligrams per day is a common target.
Does calcium affect weight at all?
There's some interesting, though not definitive, data suggesting it might slightly reduce fat absorption from meals. But its main, undisputed role here is really supporting strong bones. Magnesium is another really key mineral. It's involved in hundreds of bodily functions: nervous system health, sleep quality, muscle function, and importantly, glucose metabolism.
And deficiency is common.
It can be, yes. And magnesium deficiency has been linked to metabolic issues and potentially excess weight. Some studies have shown that magnesium supplementation can improve insulin sensitivity, particularly in people who are pre-diabetic.
What's the recommended amount?
Around 320 milligrams per day is often recommended for women over 50. Like vitamin D, it probably helps indirectly with weight efforts by improving things like sleep and reducing fatigue, making it easier to stay active and motivated. And of course, other important nutrients were mentioned for overall metabolism and health, things like B vitamins, antioxidants, C's, beta-carotene, electrolytes like potassium, all best obtained from a varied, colorful diet rich in whole foods. Adequate intake of things like vitamin K, selenium, and beta-carotene also seems to be associated with better bone health and metabolic status in postmenopause.
Okay, so nutrition is clearly a critical pillar, covering calories, macros, patterns, fiber, and key micronutrients. But we know movement is just as important. What did the sources reveal about the most impactful types of exercise during this time?
Exercise is absolutely non-negotiable, really. It's critical for managing weight, but also for improving overall health during menopause. It directly burns calories, yes, but it also positively influences your hormone balance, dramatically improves insulin sensitivity, and helps shift your body composition towards less fat and more valuable muscle.
So what specific types of activity did the research emphasize most?
Well, aerobic activity is fundamental. That's things like brisk walking, jogging, swimming, cycling, dancing, anything that gets your heart rate up.
And how does that help?
It's great for burning calories and targeting overall body fat reduction. One meta-analysis mentioned looked specifically at walking in peri- and postmenopausal women. It showed significant positive effects on BMI, body weight, and body fat percentage for those who walked regularly.
How much aerobic activity is needed?
The general guideline from health organizations is at least 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity activity. But for significant weight loss, these sources suggest you might need to aim higher, maybe more like 200 to 250 minutes per week.
And it has other benefits too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Beyond weight, it's fantastic for your mood, sleep quality, and of course, cardiovascular health.
Okay, so cardio is key. What about addressing that muscle loss we discussed earlier, the sarcopenia?
That's where strength training comes in.
Yeah.
It's absolutely indispensable. Ideally, aiming for 2 to 3 sessions per week.
What counts as strength training?
It means working your muscles against resistance. That could be using weights, resistance bands, exercise machines, or even just your own body weight with exercises like push-ups or squats.
And why is that so important now?
Building or at least maintaining muscle mass is crucial because muscle tissue is more metabolically active than fat tissue. It burns more calories even when you're at rest. So more muscle helps boost your resting metabolism.
Ah, countering that slowdown we talked about.
Exactly. Plus, strength training strengthens your bones, which is vital given the risk of osteoporosis after menopause. And it also improves insulin sensitivity, specifically within your muscles.
So it helps with blood sugar control too.
Yes. Studies consistently show that combining strength training with adequate protein intake, remember, our nutrition chat is highly effective at reducing body fat while preserving that valuable lean muscle mass in postmenopausal women.
Any other benefits noted?
Anecdotally, and in some studies, women also report that regular resistance training helps reduce certain menopausal symptoms, like hot flashes, and often improves their mood, too.
Interesting. What about higher intensity workouts? Things like HII.
High-intensity interval training, or HII, was also discussed as a potentially time-efficient strategy.
How does HII work?
It involves alternating short bursts of very intense exercise with brief recovery periods. The idea is you can burn a significant number of calories and fat in a shorter workout session. Plus, it's very effective for improving cardiovascular function.
Is it suitable for this age group?
Studies suggest that HIIT is generally safe and can be beneficial for healthy postmenopausal women. It's been specifically highlighted for its effectiveness in reducing that problematic visceral fat and improving metabolic markers.
Any caveats?
Just the usual advice. If you're new to it, or if you have any underlying health conditions, especially cardiac risks, it's wise to start cautiously. Maybe get some guidance from a qualified professional to ensure you're doing it safely and effectively.
Okay, so cardio, strength, maybe HIIT. What about gentler forms of movement, like yoga or stretching?
Activities like stretching, yoga, or Pilates might not burn a huge number of calories compared to cardio, but they play a really vital supporting role.
How so?
They are excellent for stress reduction. Remember we talked about cortisol and abdominal fat? Managing stress is key. These activities also improve flexibility, balance, and coordination, which helps reduce the risk of injuries that could sideline your other exercise efforts. And they can significantly contribute to better sleep quality.
And yoga specifically?
Yoga is often mentioned for its potential benefits in easing some menopausal symptoms, like hot flashes, and for its positive impact on mood and well-being. So combining these gentler forms with your cardio and strength training creates a really well-rounded, comprehensive approach to both weight management and overall health.
So it really sounds like the most effective exercise strategy isn't just one thing, but a combination.
Absolutely. These sources are crystal clear on that point. The best results, particularly for sustained long-term weight management, come from combining that smart approach to nutrition we discussed with regular exercise that includes both aerobic activity and strength training.
Just doing one or the other isn't as good.
Focusing on just diet or just exercise will likely have some effect, maybe a moderate one, but together they have a synergistic impact. The combined effect is greater than the sum of its parts.
Is there evidence for that long-term?
Yes. One long-term study cited in the sources was quite compelling. It followed women in a comprehensive program that included diet education, practical skills like cooking classes, and regular supervised exercise.
And the results?
They were far more successful at controlling their weight over a 4.5-year period. About 55% of them maintained their initial weight loss, compared to only 26% in a control group that didn't get the full intervention.
Wow, more than double.
Exactly. And they also saw better improvements in things like cholesterol and blood pressure. It really underscores that sustainable lifestyle changes, not quick fixes or focusing on just one thing, are what lead to lasting results for weight and overall health.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, let's shift gears slightly and touch on medical interventions and supplements. Do things like hormone therapy or various supplements play a role in helping with weight management during menopause?
Let's start with menopausal hormone therapy, or MHT. Its primary use, and the main reason it's prescribed, is to manage significant menopausal symptoms. Things like severe hot flashes, night sweats, significant sleep disturbances, vaginal dryness.
So, symptom management first.
Yeah, absolutely. Its effect on weight is more of a secondary consideration, and it's a bit complex. But logically, since we know estrogen deficiency contributes to weight gain and that shift towards abdominal fat,
Replacing it might help.
theoretically, yes. Replacing some of that lost estrogen could potentially help counteract those body composition changes.
And does the research actually support that? Does MHT affect weight or body fat?
Studies do indicate that MHT can partially prevent some of those typical shifts. It's been shown in research to reduce the gain in total body fat mass, lessen that central abdominal obesity tendency, and potentially help preserve lean muscle mass compared to women not using MHT.
So, there's evidence.
Yes, large studies, like the well-known Women's Health Initiative, observed less abdominal fat gain and more lean mass maintenance in women who were using MHT compared to those on placebo. It also seems to have benefits for insulin sensitivity and is associated with a lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes later on.
So, it does seem to have positive effects on metabolism and body composition then.
It can have those metabolic benefits, that's true. However, and this is a really important clarification from the sources, MHT is not recommended or prescribed solely for the purpose of weight control or weight loss.
Okay. That's key.
Absolutely. The decision to use MHT should always be based on the severity of menopausal symptoms and a thorough discussion of individual health status and potential risks with a doctor.
What are the risks?
Like any effective medical treatment, MHT carries potential risks. These can include an increased risk of blood clots and potentially certain cancers, like breast cancer or endometrial cancer, particularly with long-term use of certain types of MHT, like combined estrogen-progestin therapy. And these risks might actually be higher in women who are already overweight or obese.
Okay, so the bottom line is, if a woman is taking MHT because it's medically appropriate for her symptoms, then the positive metabolic effects or help with body composition might be a welcome side benefit.
Exactly, a potential bonus.
But it's not the primary strategy or reason to use it if your main goal is just weight loss.
Precisely. Diet and exercise remain the cornerstones, the primary recommended methods for weight management in this population.
Got it. What about phytoestrogens? Those are plant compounds, right? Like in soy or flaxseed. Are they helpful for weight?
Right, phytoestrogens are plant compounds that have a weak estrogen-like effect in the body. They're sometimes explored as natural options, maybe for milder symptoms or potentially bone health support.
And their effect on weight?
Well, diets that are naturally high in food sources of phytoestrogens, like traditional Asian diets high in soy, are often linked to lower rates of obesity in observational studies. However, these sources emphasize a distinction. Taking concentrated phytoestrogen supplements hasn't shown a clear, significant weight loss effect in controlled trials.
So the supplements don't really work for weight loss?
The evidence isn't strong. One meta-analysis specifically looking at soy isoflavone supplements found no meaningful weight loss overall. Interestingly, in a subgroup of participants who already have metabolic syndrome, there was even a small increase in weight observed.
Oh.
So getting these compounds from whole food sources like tofu, edamame, flax seeds seems safer and provides other nutritional benefits like fiber and protein. But don't expect significant weight loss just from taking a phytoestrogen supplement pill.
Okay, that's clear. Now, beyond those foundational nutrients we already discussed, vitamin D, calcium, magnesium, which seem important for overall health and maybe have indirect benefits, were there any other supplements mentioned in the sources that actually aid weight loss specifically during menopause?
This is where the sources sound a strong note of caution. They really advise skepticism regarding many other supplements aggressively marketed specifically for menopause weight loss or for boosting metabolism.
Like what kind of things?
Things like green tea extract, L-carnitine, CLA, conjugated linoleic acid, and various other herbal or nutrient blends often promoted as fat burners.
And the verdict?
They generally lack convincing, high-quality scientific evidence to prove their efficacy specifically for promoting weight loss in menopausal women. Moreover, some unverified fat burner type supplements can even pose health risks. Yes, they could potentially affect blood pressure or heart rate, or they might interact negatively with other medications you might be taking. It's really important to be careful. So the most evidence-backed supplements, if you actually need them based on dietary intake or deficiency confirmed by testing, remain those foundational ones we talked about.
Vitamin D, calcium, magnesium.
Right. Maybe omega-3 fatty acids from fish oil for heart health, which is important. Sometimes B vitamins like B12 or B6 if there's a specific deficiency impacting energy or nerve function. But the focus should be on filling genuine nutritional gaps to support overall health, which then indirectly helps you stick to your diet and exercise plan, not searching for a magic weight loss pill, because according to this research, it likely doesn't exist in supplement form.
This has been a really comprehensive look, incredibly informative. We've seen that managing weight changes during menopause is, well, it's complex. It involves the hormones, yes, but also metabolism shifts and so many aspects of lifestyle.
And I think the key message coming through strongly from these sources is that while these physiological changes definitely present real challenges, it's not just in your head. Maintaining a healthy weight and body composition is absolutely possible. It just requires informed, consistent effort.
And it's clear the most effective approach isn't some single intervention or quick fix. It's really about a combination. Adapting your nutrition with that focus on sufficient protein and fiber, choosing beneficial overall patterns like the Mediterranean diet, or maybe exploring intermittent fasting if that fits your life.
Right, and critically, incorporating both aerobic exercise for calorie burning and heart health, and strength training to build and maintain that crucial muscle mass and boost metabolism.
And we shouldn't forget those other powerful levers we discussed, either really prioritizing good quality sleep, finding effective ways to manage stress.
Absolutely, and ensuring you're getting enough of those key supporting nutrients like vitamin D, calcium, and magnesium. They all play a role in creating a metabolic environment that's more conducive to maintaining a healthy weight.
And understanding where hormone therapy fits helpful for symptoms, potential metabolic bonus, but not the primary weight loss tool itself.
Exactly. Diet and lifestyle are the foundation.
So what does all of this mean for you, our listener? I think it means first understanding the powerful biological changes happening in your body during this transition. It's not about blame or willpower failing. It's about real physiological shifts.
Right. Having that information is empowering.
And then it's about adopting sustainable, science-backed lifestyle strategies. Strategies that work not just for the number on the scale, perhaps, but for your overall health, your energy levels, your strength, and really your quality of life through menopause and into all the years beyond.
This whole interconnected picture raises, I think, an important question for you to reflect on personally. Given that all these factors are linked, the hormonal backdrop, the impact of what you eat, how you move, your sleep patterns, your stress levels, which single area do you feel might be the most accessible or perhaps the most powerful place for you to start making a focus change right now? Keeping in mind that improving just one aspect often creates positive ripple effects across all the others.